Welcome, family, back to the Upper Room Live, connecting Christ with culture here at Eastern Star Church online, where Jesus is exalted and the word is explained. Our senior pastor is Pastor Jeffrey A. Johnson Sr. We are one church in three locations and online. And I'm excited about tonight's conversation, and especially those who are in the ministry spotlight with us on tonight, near and dear to my heart. Shout outs to Ignite.
Hey,
Hey, hey. Our youth leader representing on tonight. She serves as our council co-chair, Miss Riley. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. So glad to have you here with us on
Thank
tonight.
you.
And let's jump over to the crew. Who's crew? Who you rocking with? To our young adult ministry. How are you tonight, Kristen?
Great. Looking forward to it. Really glad to be here.
Good. Thank you so much. And to my partner, not in crime, but always on time, Pastor P.
partner in Christ, right? we
Partner
can
in Christ, my co-laborer. How you
good
doing,
trouble.
Pastor P?
I'm doing all right. I'm a little bit tired. This is that point in the service where you need one of our senior saints to slide you a little piece of candy to get you give you a little extra boost to close it out. But I'm doing well. I ain't got no complaints.
Yes, yes, it has been a whirlwind for us as we get into this fourth quarter game time. October was amazing. I think you all would agree between our revival, our clergy appreciation month with the celebration for Pastor Johnson. Shout out one more time for 35 years as pastor and people as we've been celebrating all year. Then we had our fall festival and our team mixer. It's been October was really good to us. It was a great month. Would y'all agree?
Absolutely. I
Yes.
feel like I've been
Yes.
everywhere.
At least all three campuses, right? And
hmm
online. So
Yeah.
so yeah, good stuff. And we're praying for November to be awesome as well to us. And Tuesday, as we come off of elections, we wanted to be able to have robust and interesting, and hopefully we pray, as it's always the aim in the upper room, that it is informational and inspirational.
Absolutely.
On tonight, we had a lot of historic first that happened across not just in Indianapolis or and surrounding areas, but also throughout the state. We had a lot of our church family too, who served during this time on a local level as well as national as well. And so, definitely a conversation and a space that we can have this conversation from a through a faith lens, right, and a pastoral perspective as well, and
Mhm.
talk about, from we the people, yes, but we the church as
Absolutely.
well, as our responsibility and our role as the church in civic engagement. So we have an amazing lineup that'll be joining us on tonight. And hopefully, if time will allow, we also want to leave space that we had a commitment, because also in October, our church had our ESC Pink Out as well. And so we want to honor our commitment to breast cancer awareness being not just in October, but beyond. And we also did recognition for Domestic Violence Awareness Month as well. And so stand by as we have another life experience we want to share on tonight of how you turn passion into power. And then also that we share some practical insights as well of how to keep that conversation going, and making sure that we are practicing awareness and support all year long. So let's get into it, family. Let's talk about Ignite and Crew. Pastor P, I'm gonna pass you the mic, sir. This is your responsibility, your role, your oversight, where you provide pastoral oversight and leadership. So just talk about these two amazing young ladies and these particular ministries.
Absolutely, and thank you, Dee Dee. Yeah, I'm gonna let them talk about all the good stuff, but I thank God that He sends us good laborers, faithful people that are talented, passionate, and actually understand the vision and are able to contribute their gifts, skills, talents, anointings, yeah, to the mission and the vision of the church. So, yeah, I'll let them introduce themselves and kind of just share whatever comes top of mind first, just about their position in the ministry and kind of the ministry focus. And we can start with Miss Riley Giles, who is the Ignite Teen Leadership Council co-chair.
Well, yes, my name is Riley Giles. I'm in 11th grade and I am the council co-chair on our Ignite Youth Council. So I think what I want to share most about Ignite is that it's not only a place for us to have church, it's not only a place that we share to like talk about Jesus, but it's also like an organization that we build around that. So while we do have our faith foundation, we also have the, I guess, administrative side, if you will. Like we work to design and organize the events that we want to have while also building friendships because at the end of the day, even though we do all have these positions with their titles and responsibilities, we're still teens that just started out as coming to teen church or coming to Rock City Mondays or engaging in these Ignite events. So we start out with our faith foundation, but we build friendships along the way and we also organize events that we like to have. So one of the events that we have coming up that's actually in partnership with some of the other churches and their youth ministries in the city, Light of the World, New Direction, New Era, New Beginnings, and some other churches. We have our Ignite, we have our youth formal coming up. So that's just where we dress up. It's like kind of close to Christmas. So it's like a winter formal. So you know how you have your homecomings and stuff at school. It's our church formal. So we Eastern Star actually hosted last year. So I actually got to be in the planning process of that. So I got to see how the teens actually have an influential role in the events that we plan and the events that happen. So if you see promoting, you see advertising, you see us walking around, we introduce ourselves when we can because we like our church congregation to know who we are. Just know that the stuff that you're seeing, that's for us and it's by us. So I think that's the main thing about Ignite is having an organizational part that's built on our faith.
That's good stuff, Riley. I see why you are the Ignite Council co-chair. Way to represent. Very proud and excited about what all of you do and how you represent the kingdom in Eastern Star Church. So thank you for joining us in the upper room on tonight. Kristen, we'll toss it to you. Talk about crew.
Absolutely. When I first entered into adulthood, I was looking for somewhere to plug in and not knowing which ministry fit best for me at the time. Crew was doing a call out. And so I joined, and now I get to be a part of providing that same experience that I received to other people. Crew is for young adults. We say 18 plus because we don't like to put a cap on it. You know, you stay as long as you feel like you need to, but it's just a place where you can get started, right? Where you can plug in, meet people you're, in your same phase of life, whatever that may be, and just really to kind of discuss what's important in that time of your life. Plug in. We come alongside other ministries, especially Ignite, because we both share Pastor P, and so it's just helpful to help people to transition into that next stage and then also flourish in that stage. Several of us serve in many different ministries. And it's great to see young faces involved in ministries that are traditionally older in age. I know some of us serve in Barnabas, some of us serve as greeters, and so just plugging ourselves in so that as the church transitions, that we are a part of that change. So it's been good. We do Bible study monthly. We have the opportunity to do outings. We have some annual things like our kickball game that are big staples for us. And so we have a little bit of fun, a little bit of study, and then we're always open to suggestions. So same with what Riley said. If you see, communication coming from us, it is for us and by us, but we welcome everybody.
Yeah, and I'll just say there too. I mean, thank y'all both just for representing. And again, you see what we're talking about, Didi. Like the work don't get done with incredible people that God moves in their heart, and they like, yo, I want to use my passion and my conviction to actually help build this thing out and have some
Yeah.
impact in people's lives, impact in the church, impact in the kingdom and the community. So we kind of, I think, sometimes undermine how critical that youth and young adult demographic is to the church and to the community, right? Where they're being prepared for their life purpose, their life, really their professional career and where their life will end up, to be able to have that support system. I love, Chris, that you said, and we heard this too. Shout out to Courtney Richards. She just came back from medical school. I think she came back at was it pre-med or nursing? Yep. Came back to the city, and she's just like, wait a minute, like where do I fit in at, right? So she came on out the crew, and she was just so excited to have that place, that community. And now to see all of the young adults plugging in with the teens, showing up and volunteering. I don't even call them volunteers, ministry assistants,
Yeah.
assisting
Yeah.
with the ministry, just those connections being formed between the young adult demographic and the teens is just incredibly beautiful. And the same thing down as we oversee children's ministry, to see the teens helping impact and showing up with the children's ministry. It's just, this is what community is supposed to look like. So
That's right. That's right. And it's the lifeline of the ministry, literally. So thank you, Kristen, for raising that up. And again, to Pastor P for your reference to that as well. And again, it's a testament to Eastern Star Church truly is an intergenerational ministry. And
mhm.
again, it's a part of that lifeline. And so we are in this together. We all need each other. And I think it's even relevant. No, I know it's relevant to our conversation on tonight. But let me pause for the cause for those who are logging on tonight. Welcome back to the Upper Room Live, where we
Back.
are connecting Christ with culture here at Eastern Star Church online. Our pastor, again, is Pastor Jeffrey A. Johnson Sr. We are one church in 3 locations, intergenerational ministry. And we just thank God for this sacred cyberspace on tonight where we can have conversations that are relevant. And we pray are informational and inspirational. And so they have gotten me together in the chat on tonight. I forgot I did, family. So thank you for the roll call for those in the chat on tonight. I think we are all in the building. Main campus, main attraction, as we call them in the upper room, and our Cooper Road crew and our Fishers family. So thank you all for shouting out on tonight, checking in, and letting us know that we are officially a go in the upper room on tonight. And again, as relevant to the topic, intergenerational ministry is in the 4 walls, but outside of them as well. And so on tonight, as we come off of the election results from Tuesday, there were a lot of historic firsts that happened here in Indianapolis, around the city, and throughout the state. And we have some amazing community leaders with us on tonight, representing all affiliations, if you will, or the primary ones, at least that we know or are accustomed to hearing, are being represented on tonight. And I believe that we're going to have a very robust conversation. I think it will be an insightful one. And Kristen and Riley, I want you all to hang out and stay engaged in that conversation, because I know Pastor P, we'll use this as the segue. I know that you, along with our leadership, including our senior leadership, are very intentional and supportive of our young adults, our youth, and our young adults having an understanding of the importance of how social expression,
Mhm.
social action, social justice is anchored in the Bible, but
Absolutely.
also a responsibility of for believers as well.
Absolutely.
So can you speak to that and how that's represented or expressed within the ministry?
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I'm gonna try to do it without preaching. No, I'm just right. But I mean, you literally cannot look anywhere in scripture, right, without seeing things about um, the values of communities, advocating for communities to political powers. As a matter of fact, to a great degree, the entire scripture, especially the Old Testament, is sorted by kings and their reign, the time that they reigned, right? I mean, so it's all there, right? And I mean, we could go down the list just unpacking and looking at different areas. But understanding that community is supposed to be, especially for us in the Black community, I think community really is birthed out of the church, right, to a great degree. And understanding that the powers that be, the politics, all of the things that require our civic engagement is going to happen with or without us, right? It's the way of the world, it's the way of the country. And if we don't advocate for our own communities and help put people in place that are going to make decisions for us and for our communities, then the people who are going to make the decisions are not necessarily taking into consideration the things that impact us, right? And then there's a long list of things where that shows up, like you talk about socially, educationally, relationally, economically, right? And so for young people, that's where, and I know we'll start to talk about this next voting populace, right? These upper teens, like y'all's time is coming up. So
Mhm.
I don't want to wait. Like I think it probably happened to some degree in communities until um, their people are voting age, And then you tell them, go out and go vote, go out and go vote. And they're like, we don't know what we voting for. I'm almost intimidated by a ballot. Like, I don't know what to do with this.
Right.
Like, I don't know what an education referendum is. What are you talking about, right? So we wanted here at Eastern Star Church in the ministry, we wanted to make sure that as soon as possible, young people are able to see our calling and our conviction to be civically engaged, right? To start, like Riley talked about, across our 3 campuses and in different counties and townships, preparing young leaders for effective leadership, how to work across the aisle, right? How to make decisions even when other people at the table don't agree with you, right? And to help them look at some of the politics that affect teenagers, right? When it comes to violence in the communities, when it comes to educators, when it comes to social issues that show up in classrooms and in school districts where your ethnic background ain't as represented as others, right? Where your convictions and things that are norms for you are alien to other people, and they treat you like an alien because of it, right? How do you advocate for yourself and people who look like you in those environments? So we've had school board leaders, and I'll let Kristen or Riley, if they want to chime in with anything here before we get ready to transition. But we've had everything from community activists, school board leaders coming and talking to our kids, political candidates that are running for mayor. I mean, I could name drop, but all kind of elected officials and stuff coming, talking to our teens, spending weeks with them, talking to our young adults, getting their feedback, because we really believe in us, the church, the community, the leaders, being prepared to be able to advocate for our communities and making sure that we got the right representation at the city tables.
That's good. And as we transition, I want to give opportunity to Kristen and Riley to add any perspective and talk about what perhaps you're most excited to talk about on tonight that you hope will come up in the conversation.
Go ahead, Riley.
I was going to say, just me growing up, politics has been in my life. Like, it hasn't been something I've been hidden from. So as such, I've developed a sort of affinity for just paying attention to it. And so one thing that I did notice just coming off of this election is that Deb Whitfield, Black woman, mayor of Lawrence County. And I think one thing I just realized with her case is that I didn't hear much about her. Like, I wasn't seeing campaign ads of her back to back to back to back. And as me and my mom were talking about, we really only saw something about her when her opponent, David Hoffman, was putting out, you know, his little mudslinging campaign against her. So I think just one thing that says, just like in our case with Mayor Hogsett and Jefferson Shreve, is that you out here trying to bash the other person and you not focus on basically just trying to make sure they lose and not focusing on the fact that you want to win. And we see that in both cases that wasn't really effective. So just me paying attention to the election itself, and then the race leading up to it, that was one thing that I really paid attention to, is that you want to promote yourself, but you also don't want to focus so much on making sure that somebody else falls, that you don't make sure that you prosper.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good. Kristen, weigh in.
I think for me, church is such a big part of my life. I feel like I'm there half the time of the week, right? But that just means that all of the messaging that I receive and all of the avenues that I go down, a big majority of them should come from the church. And so it's important that Eastern Star provides that extra part of the pie in respect to, political knowledge and being aware of what the candidates are and who your options are, even if you don't agree with who's present, just knowing that there's options, what the dates are, where you can go. I know there are some people my age who I've spoken to who didn't, like P said, didn't know what any of those terms meant or didn't know who to vote for. But the idea that the church reminds you at whatever age you are that it is important to vote. And I know for me, going to a different type of school as a young person, they really push the narrative of certain candidates. And so I appreciate that pastor doesn't do that, and that I can just receive the idea that it's important to vote and cast my opinion, but have my own opinion. And so I appreciate the role that it plays, and I hope that we all take that as an initiative to get more involved.
Good. I think that's a great point to transition on tonight, to segue to our first guest with us. I believe Greg Stowers of the Indianapolis City Council is in the upper room with us on tonight. Let's welcome him. How are you, sir?
Good evening. How are you all?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome to the upper room, sir.
The upper room. My apologies on the background. I was trying to download it, but I
It's
think
all
I'm a little
good.
technology challenged this evening.
Uh, it's all good. It's all good. We appreciate you taking the time out to be with us. We know it's been a busy week. You made it across the finish line, and Pastor P wanted to have some backup with him on tonight. I'll let him speak to that. And P, I'll toss the mic to you to
Man, yeah, first of all, bro, they was gonna leave me in here in the upper room with all of our sisters. I was like, y'all gonna have me be the the only representation for our brothers. See, we talk about equality, right?
Right?
No, but if you could just, man, I've been knowing you for a while. If you could just introduce yourself, talk a little bit about what you do. I know you know stranger to the Eastern Star Church family, about your entire family actually.
Sure.
But yeah, if you could just talk a little bit about your background, man, and kind of what you currently do with the office of the City County Council.
Well, first off, I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to be here this evening. And as it relates to the equality of being a man in a room with women, I think that for so long it was the other way around. So I
Yes, sir.
am grateful to be in the presence of established people like yourself, some young people here too. So I'm grateful for the opportunity. In terms of me, I was actually baptized at Eastern Star Church back in the, that would have been, I've been around since the 22nd in Columbia location.
wow.
I've been an OG with it, but I currently serve as the chief administrative officer and policy director for the office of the City County Council. So on a day-by-day basis, I manage day-to-day operations of the City Council, also providing policy, strategy, budget analysis, and a variety of different things to all 25 counselors. So not only do I work for President Osley, I also work for 24 other counselors, and that includes some of my colleagues on the Republican side, which is a great experience for me in terms of learning how to get things done. I think too often the national narrative around the differences in politics has a way of interrupting progress. And I look at politics not from a standpoint of enemies, but opponents. And fortunately for me, I get the opportunity to work with people who may differ from me, but all have the same goals in mind to make our city better. I'm grateful for that opportunity.
For sure. What would you say got you into your passion? And I'll throw it to you, Didi, after that. But what got you into this field? Because I know I've been knowing you since our Indiana State days. And even back then, you were super focused, man. We were part of a kind of a leadership group together there on campus. You were writing for the Statesman down there. What pushed you into your purpose? What would you say?
So I am a product of two of the greatest parents in the world, Gregory Allen Stowers Sr. and Kim Stowers. And when I was younger, I can remember on Martin Luther King Day every year, they'd have me watching Eyes on the Prize, which was a sort of anthology of the civil rights movement. Mm-hmm. And at 3 or 4 years old, that's a lot to take in. But I'm more thankful for that now than I ever could have been at that time. I mean, learning about the issues that affected people that look like us early on has played a crucial role in where I am now. And while I do work on behalf of people of varying identity groups, it was that start that was important for me, just to see some of the struggles that we endured. And as a result of that, got overly involved in student government in high school and college. Had the incredible opportunity to intern for then Senator Obama when I was a student at Indiana State University, and have made my way around politics over the past 15 years, working in and out of different campaigns and different advocacy issues.
That's good stuff. So thank you again for being with us as a civic leader and a servant leader as well, giving your connection again with Eastern Star Church. And you were reading my mind. I said, oh, he's an OG. You took it back to 22nd at Columbia. So I want to offer or pose this question to you, if you would please, as inspiration, encouragement to Kristen and Riley and all of our Ignite Crew family listening in, watching on tonight. How do you, with that said, so eloquently with your background and your different points of connection and where you enter this space, what would be your encouragement to them when it comes to our responsibility as citizens, but also believers when it comes to engagement in the political space?
I think it's important to understand the issues. I think too often government and politics is seen as this incredibly complex thing, when in reality it isn't. And I think as we get more young people, we get more people of varying identity groups, specifically Black folks, in positions to see the other side. It's incumbent upon people like myself to make government less complicated,
Yes.
being able to break things down in a way that is digestible, not dumbing things down whatsoever. But when we talk about some of the complex issues, whenever I hear that, what that screams to me is that you're not able to explain it to people. And like I said, I think it's incumbent upon people like myself to be able to explain these things, but also for younger people to take the time to learn and educate themselves on process, on who the players are, on the variety of different things that politics encompasses. So that would be my one thing. I would also mention the importance of building relationships. Like, Pastor P, I've known since 2008, and we've stayed pretty tight over the years, and that's a friendship, right? That's a very genuine friendship, and I think what you'll find within this government and political space are relationships that are incredibly transactional. And there's a difference between being transactional and being genuine. And I think that's important for younger people to understand early on. I benefit from a number of genuine relationships, and those were built off working on campaigns. Those were built off, knocking doors and making phone calls and doing the things that weren't necessarily the most fun things, but you look back and those are the things that people remember me for. So making sure that you take the time to understand the totality of the issue while also building relationships in a genuine way are two things that I think are incredibly important.
Thank you for that response. And again, thank you for joining us in the upper room. We want you to hang out and back up your brother and stay here with us again. And thank you for being commendable of the sisters who are in this space and leading. And we have a few of them with us on tonight. And so we want to bring them to the stage. We'll start with Miss Adrienne Slash, who is with Recenter Indiana, Inc., also Autumn Carter, who is with Indiana Young Democrats, and then Whitley Yates of Indiana Republican Party. We want to thank you, ladies, for joining us on tonight, and welcome to the other side of the finish line of a very historic and I'm sure interesting campaign season as we come off of Election Day. And so I want to give you first the opportunity to introduce yourselves again and share with us in the upper room your role and your affiliation with your respective organizations. So we'll start with Adrienne.
Okay, we're off mute finally. Here we go.
There you go.
Special. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for the invitation. Pastor P, you reached out the other day, and I appreciate that and the opportunity to be here. Recenter Indiana is just about 2 years old. We're making it through our second general election cycle, and really glad to be able to do that. So the most basic way to introduce Recenter Indiana to you is to tell you that we want to bring politics back to the middle. We know that that's where most Hoosiers actually are, and we know that that's where their interests are, but we also know that our elected officials are not there. And so for me, I spent the past about 10 years really hot and heavy in the National Urban League movement, which had me pretty much solid in the middle anyway. And when I had some civic leaders come to me and ask me if I wanted to get back into politics and if I had any interest in helping some people who were interested in the processes become a little bit better at them, I kind of jumped at the opportunity because it is my passion. My passion is making sure that we present good candidates to the community. I actually think that we as citizens deserve people who understand the people they want to represent. I also believe that we deserve good candidates that have transparent information available to them. and that when you're trying to research a candidate, that it's not that hard to figure out what they think about certain things. So call me crazy. It's a really lofty goal. Our plans are big. Many of you actually got to know us a little bit this year because the Hogsett campaign used a clip of our Jefferson Treve interview. I'm sure you saw it. It was in a man's kind of loft. It was an interview. You've seen it before, I'm sure. You're happy it's not on your TV anymore. But that's the way that we interview candidates before we make our candidate selection, because we want you to see unedited, transparent, straightforward interviews side by side with both people that are running in for an office. And so that's what we do. I can also say that one of our endorsements was Stephanie Terry in Evansville. So we did get to be a part of getting one of those first Black women endorsed this year.
Yes, and she was the winner of the mayoral election in Evansville, Indiana, and first female, first Black, or first African American,
and first woman also.
Yeah, the first woman, right? Yes,
they were going to have a woman regardless, and so it was a great process to be a part of. But I also do have to give the disclaimer: I lean to the right of center, and so it's actually been an honor, like what Greg was saying, to work with both sides of the aisle and thought to really start to understand where we can find common ground when we're looking at elected officials.
Absolutely. And I'll say, and I will go ahead and allow Ms. Whitley, or however you would like them to go up next, Dee Dee. But that is something that's really important that you touched on, Slash, is in the middle, like where the work gets done is where everybody can say, regardless of I have my convictions. It's okay for me to have my convictions. You can have yours too. But what are the issues where work needs to be done, right? And it is going to take for us to be able to get that. So even when we were doing the Rock City Monday, some of the social justice classes and some of the team politics, we make sure there's representation on different sides of the aisle, right? I loved to be able to have Greg and Whitley coming in there, meeting the teens on there for those consecutive Monday nights, right? And just building together, right? You could tell them y'all's political opinions, right? Help them think through it, help them sort it out, help them to actually be critical thinkers and understand that there still can be relationship. And I can still call you on your stuff. You can still call me on my stuff, and we can still do work together for right reasons, right? So
that's the hard part, because in public, that's not what you see. You don't see it in public, but it does happen. These are all my friends on this camera today as well. Like all my friends, I give them all long hugs when I see them.
I love that. And that's what our young people need to see. We need to see as a community together. And so we're glad that we could create this space in the upper room to bring the reality and the correct optics to the political space. So thank you all again for being with us on tonight. I want to toss the mic to Autumn Carter, please, the Director of Diversity and Inclusion with the Indiana Young Democrats. How are you this evening, ma'am? And thank you for joining us.
I think you may be still muted, Autumn.
Let's see. Let's try it again. No, we'll have you, let's have you log, we're going to pull you backstage and have you log off and reset your audio, okay? Because we don't hear you coming through to us. All right, let's toss it then. Let's go over to Miss Whitley Yates. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us on tonight. You are the director. State your name and your affiliation and your role. I'm going to yield that to you. Go right ahead.
Hello, Eastern Star in the upper room. My name is Whitley Yates. I am the first and only Director of Diversity for the Indiana Republican Party, and I'm excited to be here tonight.
Well,
thank you so much for being here. Pastor P says you are no stranger, as he just mentioned, particularly with our crew and our Ignite ministry. So tell us about, as you just mentioned, it being a first time and then serving in this role, that connection for you with community, serving in faith-based spaces, building relationship, and just what this experience has been for you, particularly representing the Republican Party in, of course, Indiana being a Republic state. So talk about that experience.
So I've been in my role for 4 years now, and it's definitely been a journey. So when I received my role, I'm the first person to ever have it. less than 6 months later, President Trump banned all diversity training at a federal level. And so I wasn't quite sure where the party itself was going to go and what place I had in this role that it seemed were a populace of people who subscribed to the conservative and Republican ideology didn't even believe in what we were doing here. And so I'm thankful that the leadership at the time, which was Chairman Kyle Hupfer, was like, we push forward because we know that we want to do what's right. The reason why he hired me and brought me on was, as many of you may not know this, so this could be actually new news to you, there's not a lot of racial diversity within the Republican Party of Indiana. Now, I don't know if y'all knew that or not, but the writing's on the wall. And when we look at the elected officials, specifically in a state that is super majority in the state house, all Republican, it was void of any real racial diversity. And so Kyle was like, we can't be that party. It's so important for us to build non-transactional relationships. It's important for us to be in these communities because we represent them. And so he decided that we needed to create a leadership series that really helped to bridge the gap between community, conservative, as well as the party. And so, you know, as I've been in this role now for 4 years, we built that leadership series. It's in its 4th iteration. We will announce tomorrow that we're having a 4th class. And in this most recent municipal election cycle, we had some wins from our class, which is really unprecedented to start something in 3 years and to be able to pull out 2 wins. So that is really exciting. We were able to elect the first African-American mayor of Marion, Indiana, which is about an hour away from here, a little bit past Anderson. And Marion has a pretty tumultuous history as far as the state of Indiana. The last known lynching was in Marion in 1930. You've probably seen the pictures in your books. And so for us to be able to win, and we won, you know, over 60% of the vote in Marion to have the first African-American mayor is a testament to the program. And then in Fishers, we have Tiffany Ditlifson. She was able to win on the council. She's the first African-American to serve on the council in Fishers. And so I'm very blessed and I'm very thankful to be able to cultivate something where you can see the change happening already. And our series is focused on people who are community centered, meaning that we want people who are already in the community doing the work necessary. So for instance, a gentleman in Marion was the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club, very active with his church, volunteered different places. Like those are the types of leaders that we're looking for. And so it has definitely been a journey. We've had successes, and we're going to continue to blaze the trails that nobody else seems to be blazing in the Republican Party at this time, no matter where the national scene or leadership is.
Wow. Thank you for that. Can you state the name of the new mayor in Marion?
It's Ronald Morrell Jr.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for being with us on tonight and enlightening us and giving us some background. Because I don't know about anybody else. I'm born and raised in Indiana. So I'm very familiar with the landscape, as you said, being a majority of a Republican state and so forth. And growing up, not seeing a lot of people who look like you and I. And so thank you for having boots on the ground, being committed to your role, you know, within this particular state and context and just the lay of the land, particularly just during this time, is something very, I'll say, courageous to do. And thank you for being with us on tonight. All of you, actually, bold moves and very courageous. Again, like you said, Adrian, in that effort to move us to the center and be about and working in the middle. So appreciate that. I think we have Autumn Carter back with us. So if we could bring her to the stage and
yeah, sorry about that. I apologize for the technical difficulty.
All right, it's okay. It's okay. It comes with the upper room. It comes with this space, so it's all good. We're glad to have you and glad that you could reconnect. So tell us more about you and your role and your affiliation on tonight.
Sure. So I would first want to thank you so much for reaching out to me to have me in the upper room. I want to say hello to everyone. I know everyone on the call. Pastor P, this is our first time meeting, so very nice to meet you. Excuse me, as well as the other two young ladies who shared their passion in politics and with the church. I am the director of diversity and inclusion for the Indiana Young Democrats. I have been serving in this role for about maybe 4 years. Under different leadership. So we do currently have a different president, and he asked me to come back, and I gladly assumed the role as the diversity and inclusion director. So in my role, well, let me back up. So our mission with the Indiana Young Democrats is to participate in the electoral process, as well as influence elections with young people, as well as develop our skills with our youth. So we want to build a bench of people who care and love our community, but also uphold the democratic values and ideals, and also to promote people running as local leaders, national leaders that again hold up the ideals of the Democratic Party. And my specific role, I am to basically promote diversity and inclusion in our organization. And that comes with sharing our best practices and also listening to our body to make sure that everyone feels included and feels, like they have a place in our organization. Also to provide advice and to guide our organization in a way that is all inclusive, as well as promote changes within our organization.
Good. Wow, thank you so much, Autumn. And again, bold moves on your behalf too, and courageous. Thank you all so much for your servant and civic leadership. And so, with all introductions in motion, set in place, let's dive a little deeper into our conversation. I want to circle back to Greg. From the perspective of the city council from the Marion County race, very eventful on Tuesday. People seem to be very attentive. They said it was one of the greatest early voting turnouts that we've had in our city. And so, can you speak a little bit to that experience now that we are on the other side of the results? And want to extend our congratulations to the Honorable Mayor Joe Hogsett for victory in another term, and all of those who to remain in their city council seats, or those that were gained as well. Because I know we had the first, correct me if I'm wrong, there was a young man who was
23 years
23 years
old.
old. Yeah, the youngest, who will serve in a city council seat representing, I believe it's the Castleton and Geist area. And so it was a lot of historic wins on last night. And so talk about that experience
Yeah.
and what
So
it means, and what it means as well.
yeah. So just for some context, I have, and just for transparency's sake, I spent some time working in the mayor's office years ago. Actually worked as Mayor Hogsett's special assistant. It's a long time ago. But now, like I said, I work for the city county council, and I think it's just important to make that distinction as it relates to the branches of government. So we have kind
Please.
of like, think about like Congress, right? You have Joe Biden, and then you have Congress. From a local standpoint, executive branch is where Mayor Hogsett sits, and then from a standpoint of the council, we are the legislative branch. So just making sure that just trying to make that distinction clear as it relates. Oh no, you're good. As it relates to the council, like I said, there are 25 elected councilors, and all 25 of those councilors were up for election. We ended the night with 7 new councilors, 6 Democrats and 1 Republican. And like you said, the turnout was large this year, and I think that's a result of the expansion of voting centers, giving citizens around the city of Indianapolis the ability to vote early. So I think the numbers may be a little bit skewed as it relates to the historic nature of it. I think this is something that we're going to continue to see as we grow as a city. But again, I am in the governing space. There's certainly a bit of politics that I play on a personal level. But my goal is to make sure that all the 25 councilors are ready to govern as soon as they begin their new terms in January of 2024. I think supermajorities are certainly interesting. We see that at the local level and also at the state level. And from a standpoint of a staffer, it certainly presents some opportunities, to say the least. But at the end of the day, I was recruited for this job by President Bob Osley, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to do that. And not only working for him, but also, 24 other counselors. So it was definitely a big night. I think most people would say that it was a big night for Democrats. But there was also the win on the South Side for the Republican Party, which I think is indicative of the new redistricting maps that went into place. But like I said, I think from a governing standpoint, that is my focus, and I think that's what's most important, to make sure that our counselors understand the role and the possibility and potential of their roles. But from a pure Democrat standpoint, I don't think we had a bad night on Tuesday.
Not at all. And thank you for clarity of context, as I referenced to the mayor, who works along with those 25 counselors, as you mentioned, and again going back to working in the middle, right? And so I want to get some firsthand reactions as well from Adrian, Whitley, Autumn. How do you all feel about Tuesday's results? I know you've all kind of spoken to it, but as we can kind of dive into some detail. And then I want Kristen and Riley and Pastor P, you all, as any questions or comments arise in response, please jump in. So anyone take the mic, just tell us just some points of reflection. Because a lot of us, as you all know, general public, most of us, we just know it's over. We see the results and we go back to our lives, right? But what is that like in your collective world? What does that mean? Once the elections are announced, what does that mean for you for next day on the ground?
Sure, I think the work never. Oh, so
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I think the work never really ends, to be quite honest. Even though the campaigns end on the back end, the people who are elected into office, that's now a new day for them to really and truly now apply the things that they have promised to the people. So I don't think that the work truly ever ends. However, as a Democrat, I'm very proud. I'm very happy with the results. I say that because we had a lot of things on the line and a lot of things that were at stake. And to see the numbers and the turnout that came out and how the elections played out, especially with Mayor Deb Whitfield now, and Mayor Joe Hogsett, I'm very happy to see that we stood up and we said we're going to vote. No matter how long the lines are, we're going to stand in line. I actually worked a few of the polls, and that was one of the biggest complaints, was that the lines were long. And so that's kind of a good thing. But also, too, I didn't want them to get discouraged, so I would just hurry up and find a place that they could go to that was close by, nearby, that didn't have as much as a wait time by texting someone that may have been working a different poll. But as a Democrat, I'm very happy with the turnout.
Thank you.
So I just want to chime in from what the tone that we've heard from voters and from people that were concerned about the election. I think one of the greatest things that came from this election is people realizing that we don't have a bench for the roles of interest. Specifically in our major cities. I think the bench exists, but those are not the people that get elevated to the top. They're not the ones who make it out of primaries. They're not the ones that had opportunity to try in a general. And I see you, Whitley, because I think that the bench does exist. And I know that Autumn and Whitley both spoke to it, but we didn't get them through primaries. And because they didn't get through primaries, we didn't get to vote on them in a general. And if we don't get to vote on them in a general, you end up with who you get. So the turnout that we did get is shocking to me, because I actually think that there were more people who were just like, so I get two guys that look alike that have the exact same plans. What am I supposed to do with that?
Yeah.
And I think that the voter loses when that becomes the thing. And so we've got to really work to elevate candidates. The work that Whitley's doing is important. The work that Hoosier Win Forward and Luger Series and those other organizations are doing is exceptionally important. We have to identify the future candidates for Riley's generation. Riley's got to have peers that see opportunity to be elected officials and that get to participate in the process. And what we did in the primary season this year, I think really hurt a lot of people's hopes and even thinking that they could be on the ballot in major cities. And so that's going to lose our brain trust, and they're going to move out to the outskirts because they can. get ballot access out there.
Yeah.
So I think we have to do our part to teach people how to elect the bench and not just the favorites.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for raising that up, Adrian. Excellent points. Whitley, I see you. I see you. Jump in.
So there's so much I want to say. And while we commend turnout, I'm going to just be honest. I think our turnout was poor. It's better than 2019. In 2019, we were at 24.2% turnout, which means 24% of the people that could show up did. And now we're at 26.3. So we increased it only 2%. I'm going to frame this how I would frame it any other way. In Indianapolis, a city that has over 20% African American population, which I'd like to think is closer to 30.
Mm-hmm. Go
and
there.
When I think about not even just the past 8 years, we could do 12, we could do 16. And I think about our community, the Black community. I don't feel as though we have been made a priority in a way that we should have been made a priority. And I say that when I talk about policies, I say that when I look at our communities. And I felt as though this election was an opportunity. Now, Republicans in Marion County and Indianapolis, we don't expect to win. The numbers are against us. It's like a D plus 25, meaning there isn't a large base of Republicans for you to be able to move that needle. And in order to move that needle, you need to get undecideds and Democrats to vote for you, which is an uphill battle in today's political society. Usually there's a fluke. If a Republican wins, something went wrong. The Democrat did something wrong. And it's usually not a testament to the candidate of the Republican, but more a diatribe to what the Democrat did. In this specific election, people were upset with the two choices that we had, but only 12% of them showed up in the primary. We could have had the first Black mayor of Indianapolis.
True.
But y'all didn't show up in the primary in May. So you get to November and you're disappointed with the choices that we have, but where were you in May to select who the choice was going to be? And so as we are attempting to get civically engaged, I absolutely love Crew and Ignite at Eastern Star because we really got into this in our political discussion. But it's so important that we empower people and understand that the power is within the people. Meaning, if we move from 12% turnout in a primary and we double that to 24% in a primary, we could create seismic shifts within our community. We can select the candidates that we want to see that best resemble our community, our value system. And so as we're looking at what just happened on Tuesday and how wonderful these pockets of spaces were, the truth is, should Lawrence have had their first Black mayor before Indianapolis? I highly doubt that. And I think that as we are looking for adequate representation, we must do what's necessary, which is show up in May to make sure that we get great candidates of character on the ballot. That's what I'll say.
No, thank you. Excellent points. Thank you all for raising up and referencing back to the primaries. Just so much, a lot to chew on, a lot to think on that you all have raised up in the conversation, and very, very important to lean in specifically to we have to show up. We have to show up, and that every day. I'm going to quote a conversation with Reverend Nicole Barnes, who is one of our ministry leaders, and she serves with Faith in Action Fund, advocate for sure. in this space. And unfortunately, she could not be with us on tonight, but this is only the beginning of the conversation as we want to keep this going, particularly as we go into or continue in this cycle for the presidential campaign next fall. She will be with us in the upper room on a regular basis. But to frame the conversation, what she wanted to land on tonight is that every day is election day, and that now that we have the results, we have to hold those that are now in office accountable.
Absolutely.
She wanted to make sure that I expressed that, and to also say that we have to show up. That it's not just in November, or not even in just in May, but
Mm.
we have to show up. We have to be engaged. We have to be educated. We have to start doing that even on a at intergenerationally. And some of the conversation that some of the ESC online leaders were even having on tonight is that it should not be a small percentage of people deciding who our leadership is for
Mm.
our cities and our entire states and even our country. That we have to show up, that it is biblical, that it is wise, that we are supposed to be a part of this process of who is in rule over us, and that the church is responsible for that as well. You know, on tonight, our hashtag we play on we the people. Hopefully, you caught that. That is we the church. So our role and our responsibility as well when we put on use a moral compass in this process as well. And so that was some of the sentiments that Reverend Barnes wanted to share and express in her absence on tonight, and that meaning that it is we have to be considerate of the Bible and the ballot, and that we have to look at the greater good and the big picture of those things, that we use the vote to get us to the that it's a means to the end, correct? And so she wanted to be able to express those and help us frame this conversation on tonight again. That we need to take it seriously, that we need to be involved, we need to be educated, and we need to be engaged. If we want to see the change, we have to be the change. So,
Yeah.
on that commentary, Pastor P, I want to toss it to you to offer us
Yeah.
further that pastoral perspective. And Kristen
Mm.
and Riley want you to weigh in as well.
Yeah, and then before I do that, I know, Brother Greg, we'll let you go here soon. But any other thoughts or encouragements that you
Please.
might have? Yep, just final words. First of all, man, thank you for your service, man. You've always had that servant's heart, great connector, great communicator, and just got the right heart to really do the work that you do, man. So, any thoughts that you might want to share before we let you go?
Yeah, my apologies that I've got to go, but I would say the momentum that we're, and I'm sure my colleagues on here are going to discuss, that's got to continue, right? I think it's
Yes.
also important to understand process. So a gem that I will give you all is talk about city budgets, right? Willie was talking about, making sure that our communities are heard and valued and represented. That process for me is going to begin next week. I'm going to begin my conversations with department heads as it relates to some of their goals for next year, and I want to make sure that the community is involved in that discourse. So just understanding the calendar as it relates to where the money goes. I think that's one thing that we haven't really touched on is the importance of making sure you're understanding of the budget process and the finances of city government, because there are numerous areas where I think we can take steps as a community, not only as Black folks, but also for young folks, younger people. So just making sure that we are aware of that process. It's not necessarily just advocating while you're in the meeting. It's making sure that you're advocating before the meeting ever happens.
Correct.
And typically we are not in those rooms. So I take it humbly that I'm involved in a lot of those processes, but just making sure that we are aware of what of the next year from a calendar standpoint. Our budgeting process starts technically in August, but there are numerous conversations that lead into that. And there are numerous groups in and around the community that are beginning to have those conversations as it relates to city funding. So I'm always happy to be a resource. And again, my apologies on having to step out, but certainly thankful for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you being with us and taking the time out. And our prayers are with you and our support as well. And thank you for what you do to help to stay on the wall and do the service and get the job done and keeping everybody in order. So we appreciate you. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
and we'll make sure to have you back in the upper room in the future with us.
Thank you
absolutely.
all.
All right, have a good one.
Riley, I want to get some thoughts for you. And I know you were kind of just talking about the pastoral piece and recognizing, I know in these political seasons like this, when all of the representation that we see of different candidates is intentionally super partisan representation, right? To put each other in as opposite sides of the ring as possible, that kind of becomes the narrative that paints the way we see individuals and their issues. Actually, there was a really, really good article that was written. I think his name was Brandon. I can't remember. It was just on a few days ago. It's on the Indiana Public Radio website from
Mhm,
about talking about bipartisanship and talking
mhm,
about the amount of bipartisan efforts and successes that a place like Indiana has, and how it doesn't oftentimes match the reality that we see in culture. But I would say look up that Indiana bipartisanship and find that article on National Public Radio.
mhm.
But yeah, I ran from I'm just as transparency in the upper room, y'all. I ran from the word pastor for the longest time. I ran from the calling of what it means because I had a skewed perception that was kind of a result of my own understanding and the cultural perception of it, right? And I'm like, I don't want to be affiliated with that. That's not my personality. I ain't trying to get no church, right? It was just like all of these perceptions around what people expect that thing to be. And I only
Mhm,
bring that up because understanding like civic leadership in essence is pastoral in nature, right? What it should be, right?
mhm.
Shepherding. Pastor
Yeah,
Johnson was just talking about the lost sheep, right?
yeah,
And that
yeah,
shepherd going find his lost sheep, and where's that one, right? And then
yeah.
thinking about Jesus' charge to say, "Dog, look at me in my eyes, son. Feed my sheep. Look at me in my eyes, daughter. Feed my lambs, right?
Mhm,
Stand up for the weak and the fatherless. Uphold the causes of the poor, right? And understanding that whoever end up in office, if it's a Republican person get elected, they ain't just the mayor of Republican people, right? They ain't just the president of Democratic people of a Democratic, right? They are everybody's leadership.
yeah.
So I do want to get Riley's perspective. Just hearing all of this and understanding from a calling perspective and just from your personal passions, like what are you taking out of all that you're hearing today? And if you have any questions that you might want to ask.
I did have a question that I wanted to start with. Like, I know I speak to my classmates, my peers, and even more specifically, within church and Ignite. So, people my age that do care about their values and morals and get their values and morals from God. They try to hear God's voice. So, the question that I have is I've seen, like, talking to my peers, that there's less of an interest, and I guess the correct terminology is more of an aversion to wanting to like thinking about holding office is like, no, that's not something I want to do just because of the side of it that we see, that it's less about, okay, you're running for the people and more, okay, you've chosen a party, so you're running for this party. So that being said, with there seeming to be like a dwindling interest in that, what do you think is the future since there does have to be somebody to hold these positions and our generation is the next one coming up? What do you think is the future of presenting holding office in a positive light? So basically undoing the damage that seems to have been done.
Can I chime in? I'll say this. Part of what we're doing with Recenter is we've developed a Gen Z strategy of listening so that we can identify candidates that align with the next generation up to make sure that we're not necessarily trying to force candidates that the future doesn't want, if that
Mm,
makes any sense. But also, I think that the most important thing to know is that your generation is likely going to change politics
facts.
for the good. I mean, the thing's going to make it a lot better. There's going to be really uncomfortable times, and those are likely the times that we're looking at right now, like really, really, really uncomfortable. And it might be a really big turnoff. But I think that the most important thing to do is to let your peers know that if you don't participate, that you're going to not only miss out, but you're going to experience things worse than what you have already.
Mhm.
So
Mm,
it'd be better to participate than to let it pass you by. I think that that's the Gen X problem. Gen X feels like everything skipped over them,
Hmm.
and they didn't get a chance. But I think that millennials here real fast are about to be outnumbered. in the opportunity game, because I absolutely think that Gen Z and Generation Alpha are going to be
Yes.
as revolutionary as we saw baby boomers be, changing the way that government is run.
That's an
So be encouraged and be inspired. If you need an inspiration, look at Max Frost in Florida. I got to meet him this summer. Super inspiring. He decided to be the change his generation needed based off of his personal experience. So I think that you have to look at that. It's taking that charge.
That's good.
I will say, when it comes to Gen Z and the younger generation, and kind of how you guys play the game, you're the first generation that has always had social media from inception. You've, at the palms of your hands, you've always been able to have immediate access to information and anything that you want to know, which is why I believe that generation is so vocal. When it comes to Gen Z leadership, I think if you even just look at what happened in Marion County, and granted, people, made fun of this guy because he does live in his parents' basement or whatever, but he's an elected official now. And so I'm looking at people specifically like Roxy and Deba Madu. She ran for office in Bowie, Maryland, with like 20 days until the election. She's Gen Z, and she won with 17 votes. She's now the vice mayor of Bowie, Maryland, in her 20s. And it's just the idea, not only that you can run, but can win. She just ran for re-election, overwhelmingly won against like 4 or 5 other people. I think that for the older generations, it was hard for us to be what we couldn't see. So if we didn't see someone doing it or already there, it was hard for us to envision ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Gen Z, the door is cracked and you guys are knocking it over. So what I would say is stay engaged and involved, because the bench of talent that you wish to see is inside of you. And understand that the purpose that God has over your life will carry you, even when it doesn't look like, well, how am I going to get people to support me? Or I live in my grandparents' basement and I'm not on my own. How am I going to be able to represent a district?
Right.
But the design is divine, and understanding that you are who you've been waiting for. And we as believers are called for a time such as this, because it's hard to see ourselves in the politicians of today. And so I'm reminiscent and excited to see churches and organizations and institutions like Eastern Star who are building up the next generation, because I know from my experience with The Rock, one of y'all gonna be running for office.
That's what I'm saying.
Somebody's gonna be the next mayor from that group, or a councilwoman, etc.
I love it.
I think a lot of times we focus on what we can't do, and we need to be empowered and look at all that we can do. We start with where we are. We do what we can with what we have, and allow God's favor to follow us. And so I'm excited about the Rileys and some of the other young people that I connect with that still text and write me on Instagram when it comes to being civically engaged, because you are the future.
That's good. That's
and I want to hear Autumn too, for sure. That's why I say it does my heart so much to have young, passionate, God-fearing friends, and to be able to expose these young people to them.
Yeah.
And now what you talked about with when I'm looking at the next, do I see myself having a future in that? And can I see myself in that calling? I think it pulls the calling out, right? The last thing I want to see is, like I did, see young people running from their purpose because of a misrepresentation of it or because of distortion, right? So I just want to say thank y'all, and Whitley, Adrian, Greg, even Chris, and some of the things that you do in Autumn. Like, it means so much just for y'all to be walking and operating your purpose and making yourself proximate to the next generation. Any thoughts you might have, you can go with the same thought, Autumn.
Sure. I'm actually going to come from a different standpoint. I would say as millennials, and just even the ones before us, to make room for them, to make space for them, to make them feel like they are a part of the process. Because I know as a millennial trying to make my way into politics, it was not that easy. I was activated by simply being tired of being tired. And so I found a way through volunteering and found my way as the finance director, the next round of things for the Democratic Party. But I made myself available. So I would just say, also too, don't get discouraged if people are not making space for you. Kind of make your own space for yourself, and people will start to see that you're serious about it. They'll start to see that you are reliable, dependable, you have character, and they'll call on you when they need you. Also too, call on yourself, and maybe create like an organization that is politically aligned, or find a position or something in the organization that you want to do, and make yourself like the best pick. Make it impossible for someone to overlook you.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Kristen, I want you to weigh in as well. Any thoughts, questions, reflections?
Yeah, I think coming from my background personally, I was taught two different narratives, and one of them was that you don't talk about politics, money, or spiritual things in the workplace. And I think that has changed so much since I've gotten involved in the corporate space. There's still some boundaries depending on what type of job you have, but I think that it's important to learn how to hold space for those conversations in an appropriate way, regardless of your affiliation. I think as far as partnership is concerned, Crew and Ignite do a great job of partnering together and holding space for each other, and connecting. But I guess one of my questions or statements would be, what are some recommendations that any of you would have for that millennial who maybe is having a late start, like Autumn said, or is getting tired? What is a way to make sure that you don't remain stagnant once you realize that you're in that space? Whether that be a small item that you can start with, or if you want to dive head first, like how would you suggest you go about doing that?
Personally,
oh, go ahead, Autumn.
Go ahead. I love that answer.
Oh, my answer is training programs. We have a million of them in the city. Really, I mean, I'm looking at Pastor P like, Percy. I taught him in civic boot camp. How awesome is that? But we have so many training programs to get involved, to help you to understand how it works. We've got college Republicans, college Democrats, young Republicans. We all have different branches that connect you. Shamelessly going to plug the fellowship at the Exchange at the Indianapolis Urban League, because that's also going to give you an access point to help you to understand your city, which then could plant a seed that could help you to see, oh, this is something that I really care about. This is something I want to do. These are people that need my voice added to the conversation. So training programs is my number one answer. But then also, anyone who has ever run for office, if you send them a DM, they will respond to you. And all you have to do is ask them to tell you about their experience. And I promise you they'll do it. That's good. And it'll be their gift to give back. Essentially for me, anytime anybody asks me, I'm like, absolutely. How much time do you want? I'll give up to a whole day if somebody asks me for it, because I want to make sure that we're fueling the pipeline.
That's good.
Absolutely. That's good. I was going to say to join a campaign. My thing was to find someone whose values most aligned with mine, which was Congressman Andre Carson, and to just volunteer, just to be under their leadership without them directly having to take time away from their campaign, to just like be under them and to just watch how they move. And sometimes I find it more beneficial to first join a campaign and then go to a training, because then you're able to apply what you saw, how it felt, how it looked, and it seems more real to you, versus like having the training materials and you're kind of like boxed into that, because not every, and this is no shade at all, Adrian, for your answer, but I think to me, for me personally, I volunteered first, and then I went to the Congressional Black Caucus Institute out in DC. And so I was able to look at things from a different perspective, because not every single thing that I learned on the campaign trail was in the learning materials. So I was kind of able to have a little bit of more insight from a campaign standpoint than what the training taught, but it made the training so much more robust, because I was able to apply the things that I had saw, the things that no one pulled me to the side and say, this is what this is. it was like that aha moment, like, oh, that's what that was. Oh, that's what redlining is. That's why we were doing A, B, C, and D. And it made it much more of a robust experience for me.
Yeah. So you had a point of reference and an experience to kind of lean into. Yeah.
That's really good.
It wasn't cookie cutter, but the relevancy of the training. It just like you said, the aha moment. So thank you all for both for those responses and great questions. Whitley, I want to give you a chance to weigh in if you have anything you want to add to that.
I'm going to take it back. No, listen. So one of the things that I have to always make sure that I'm not doing in our leadership series is pushing people in the direction that I think they should go.
Yeah.
When it comes to politics,
yeah,
usually candidate first. Be a candidate, run for office. Go to a training program so you can run for office.
That's good.
I don't think that is everybody's ministry. And I don't think that you should start there at all. I don't think you should start there at all. I would tell someone, a millennial or older or younger, who just wants to dip their toe into the pond and figure out what's going on, is I would just start attending events, different political events. I know that IDAC, which is the Indiana Democratic African American Caucus, they have events coming up. I would just start going to events and building my political social capital, making friends, seeing who's there, catch a vibe. Is this your tribe? And really kind of harnessing and listening to the conversations, almost just submerge yourself. If you see a fundraiser that's happening, attend the fundraiser and just go be in the room. Because I think when we think about politics, we always, the candidate is like the sun. That is the most visible person. It's warm. Everyone sees it. But there are so many other positions in politics that aren't as forward facing. And it's the gravity that holds everything together. It's the fundraiser, it's the campaign manager, it's the data analytics person, it's the comms person. There's so many. It's the volunteer that just licks the envelopes. There's so many different levels of politics and levels of engagement. And so for someone who's not sure, I would say just start being present and building relationships and seeing if there's anything that you like in the relationships that you're building. If you meet a campaign manager, maybe meet them for coffee and talk about some of the things that they do. And also reach out to your elected officials and sit down and have a candid conversation across the table with your elected. So tell me a little bit about what's going on in your world, what's happening in our district. I'm Kristen Dent. I'm maybe even within your area where Eastern Star is. I think that your counselor is Keith Graves. Is that correct? So Autumn definitely make that.
Yeah.
But sit down and grab coffee with Keith, and talk about the district. What's popping? Y'all got a new grocery store, Black-owned grocery store, and just really figure out what is moving for the community and find centers of, places of resonance for you, and figure out what you like. Because a lot of times we push people into being candidates because the pool is contaminated. But I think that there are other places that we can be useful and that our skills can thrive.
And I think just one thing, I think that's kind of how you get involved in church. You start with different things that work for you. You don't have to be the pastor. You can be the greeter. You can be the person who sits in the back and just like holds the door open for someone who's struggling. And so I really appreciate you guys having different opinions and different ideas, because one way doesn't work for everyone. So thank you so much for that, for those of us who haven't quite gotten started.
Yeah, so many ways to enter, and I appreciate it. Going back to Reverend Nicole Barnes, a lot of different means to the one end, right? So thank you all for a wonderful conversation on tonight. So much more we could cover, but thank you all for, again, just offering your perspectives and where you enter into this landscape and for enlightening us on tonight, and definitely for the information and the inspiration. Thank you all for all that you do. And I want to shout out Kristen. She's a member of Eastern Star Church. She brought it in with that analogy, that illustration. So thank you. So thank you for that, for making it plain on
Absolutely.
tonight, and connecting the dots, because again, we the people, but also we the church. And so appreciate you all for your leadership, praying for you. And as a part of the Gen X, that's why I want to reference back to the bold moves, the courageous moves. We didn't even get opportunity to really dip into historical context,
Right.
even controlling the narrative and so forth when it comes to race, to gender, social demographics, and things of that nature. The why of what we do and what we don't do, how we vote, why we vote, and so forth. And so we have to bring you all back to engage in that conversation. And again, just helping us to control the narrative. And to giving us some further insight, because we know what media conveys to us and what is communicated, social media and so forth. So it's so great to have opportunity to speak with people who are up close, personal, on the ground, invested. And we appreciate you all for that effort, to be it, the far left, the far right, or to try to come to the middle, right, Adrian? We appreciate you all for building those relationships with one another. And I think we can all say, it's safe to say, that we want the same things, but maybe just differ in how we get there. But it's all important that we stay on the wall, particularly those who look like us. And most important, that just not as civic leaders, but as faith leaders as well, and servant leaders. So again, we appreciate you, and thank you for taking the time out. And we know, I don't think this will be the last time, as we talked about, as we enter into 2024 and another pivotal presidential campaign. And again, that is not just May and November, but election day is every day. So thank you for what you all do every day. Kristen and Riley, you all did an amazing job representing the crew and Ignite. Pastor P, I appreciate you always sitting in the upper room in the co-pilot seat with me, sir. So again, thank you, family. I want to ask family in the chat, those still holding on, hanging in there with us, we want to ask you to like, love, and share this live and this important conversation, and to keep it going. We thank you for joining us in the upper room, powered by Eastern Star Church, where we are connecting Christ with culture. Before we log off on tonight, I want to ask Autumn Carter if she would stay on with us for just a few more moments, and then we will wrap up on tonight. But thank you, family, for signing on with us, and we
Yeah.
will be in touch. And again, much, much, much gratitude to you for all you
Ladies,
do.
y'all welcome back to the upper room. Anytime, sisters. Anytime.
Anytime. We'll be calling on you, because I know the pressure is going to rise in the stretch for 2024. All right. Family, thank you all for hanging in there with us on tonight. I wanted to ask Sister Autumn Carter to stand by with us. She was booked and busy in October. And we made a reference earlier tonight about our commitment at Eastern Star Church, where we celebrate those who are more than conquerors, those who are warriors, and those who are survivors. And Autumn Carter is all that and so much more when it comes to breast cancer awareness. And so again, when I tell you booked and busy, you all, she really was. And so we wanted to bring and offer, just for a few moments, if you would just share your life experience, your testimony, and how out of that, God has allowed you through that life experience to power your passion, basically, and finding purpose, and just encourage someone who looks like you. And again, a reminder that breast cancer awareness is not just, boxed in October, but share, just take a few moments to help us to keep that commitment to continue to bring awareness to others.
Well, first of all, I have to tell you thank you for your kind words. Like, almost was like a little teary eyed, just because you're so kind.
Praise
I
God.
was booked and busy, but by the grace of God, I was able to make time for this interview. Which day I had a procedure that was for breast cancer. So I was kind of like all over the place when you called me today. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I have this, but I could not miss it. So I appreciate you for making that call. But for me, And it's so funny because I'm so politically engaged, but when it comes to breast cancer, oh, it's a whole nother notch in the level of just passion.
Yeah.
But I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 30. And I'm now 34. It started off with stage 1. Rapidly went from stage 1 to stage 3 within a couple of months, and then stage 4. So I have been a stage 4 breast cancer survivor for the past 4 years.
Wow.
And I was given a 2-year prognosis to live, and I have outlived that prognosis by the grace of God.
God. Praise God.
God is so good and so faithful.
Yes, He is.
Yes. And so if you want to ask me questions instead of me sharing my story, just let me know. If you want to interrupt me at any time, please feel free.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sure. So diagnosed at the age of 30. And I had no idea that breast cancer could happen at such a young age, especially not for myself. And I always share my signs and symptoms if I can save somebody from, waiting it out or, not going to the doctor because you're scared. Please always, if you have symptoms, please make that the first priority, because that can save your life, and it can also save the time that breast cancer has time to spread if you're treated early. So for me, my first symptom was that my breast on my right side had a little bit of a tenderness to it. And so, I didn't think much of it because we as women, we have, those things that come on when it's that time of the month. So I didn't think much of it. And, I'm very forthcoming when it comes to talking about my breast cancer diagnosis. So please excuse if I use any type of lingo that may offend anyone on the chat. But my nipple was very sore. And then underneath my nipple, I had like a kind of like a tissue type of, kind of like a smile indent. And I knew at that point I had heard about, like, if you have any type of nipple changes, to get checked out. So I did. I made my way to a doctor, and she told me that it was a possible fibroid, and they turned me away. And so I always tell people, when you go to the doctor and you know your body and they tell you that it's one thing, but you're thinking it's another, please tell them to document your chart. So that way you can always reference back to, I saw something, I heard something, I seen something, and it's not aligning with what you're saying. Please document my chart so I can have that on file, that I came to see you for that. So I would say a little bit later, I kept doing like my checks, and it's so important, ladies, for us to do those. Not like Dee Dee said, breast cancer awareness is not, it was just one time a year. It's every day. So just doing those checks, like probably like a little bit after a cycle, because our tissue tends to swell during that time. So if you wait a little bit after or before, you may be able to sense something. So I had sensed that I had a lump, and I felt a lump. So I went back to the doctor. They did let me know that I would have to go for a biopsy, and I did. For time's sake, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty, but I do have a book that is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble that goes into all the details of what I experienced. But I did have a little bit of discrimination. I didn't know if it was because of my color or if it was my age, and it may have been a little bit of both. But I did have a biopsy, and it did come back as cancerous. So I was at a Kamala Harris fundraiser, and I got a phone call that day. And my doctor had asked me if I was standing, or I was sitting. And I knew at that moment, I was like, I know it's something. And so he asked me to have a seat and for him to tell me the news over the phone. And he said, it's cancer. And I just felt the empathy in his voice. And in that moment, my head just like spun. So I do have an 11-year-old daughter at the time. She was 7. And so all I could think about was, I was like, Lord Jesus, like, please make sure she's covered. And that was my prayer. Shortly after that, I did start seeing different doctors for different things. And one particular thing I have to make sure I share, because I always share, I have the best oncologist. His name is Dr. Brian Snyder. I had met with him, I want to say maybe 2 weeks after. Andrea Moorhead is my aunt. So she made a phone call, and she's like, Brian, you cannot get on this plane until you see her. So he was about to go out of town. He made sure he stayed and saw me. So I remember walking into his office. He introduced himself, and he says, I have good news and I have bad news. And he said, which one do you want first? And I'm pretty optimistic. So I said, I will take the bad news first so I can get that out the way, and then I'll leave the office with the good news. So he said first things, because at this point, just for a point of reference in the story, it had not just been breast cancer, it was now bone cancer. So it spread from my breast to my spine, to my femur, to my hips, to my ribs. It pretty much spread everywhere, including my liver as well. And so he tells me, he said, this is not curable. And I kid you not, I heard God's voice. He said, "Of course, you can't cure her, your man."
Whew.
So I felt so much strength in that moment because I was like, I didn't cry, I didn't like buckle over, I didn't fold. I was like, okay. I said, okay, what's the good news? And he's probably looking at me like, she's like, this woman's crazy. But I'm like, I have crazy faith. And so at this point, he did say to me, he said, well, the good news is, and for the point of reference, the night before I met him, I got on my knees and I said, Lord, I want to do your work, but please no chemotherapy. So that afternoon, he said, the good news, and I had never met Dr. Schneider. I had never told him my wishes or anything. He said, no chemotherapy. That's the good news.
Wow.
So I never had to undergo chemotherapy, which is a blessing. I had to take a pill to basically like keep me going, keep the cancer under submission of the drugs. And I truly believe it's God that has kept me this entire time.
Yes,
it's a pill in the physical realm, but it's been God this entire time carrying me through this journey.
Yeah, medicine and miracles right there. Miracles and medicine. Let's put it in that order.
Yes, ma'am.
That is amazing. Thank you. I want to thank you for your transparency.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your testimony.
Absolutely.
And I know people may be trying to figure out or connect the dots, but the timing of it all, because again, how this has been used to power your purpose, because not even knowing what your prayer was to God, that you said, I want to do your work. And I think it's a reminder to us about, again, following our passion, living our life, discovering that purpose. What has God called us to do with our hands and our hearts in the earth? And that nothing can cancel that when God will is at work in your life. And so I'm sure that motivates you even the more.
Absolutely.
And literally your life work. And so thank you for sharing your story. And I'm glad you referenced your book, because I do want you to give the title of your book, please.
Sure. So it's called Thank You. And it's called Thank You because when I was going through this breast cancer journey, I decided not to be like a mean, nasty person. I didn't want to live my life that way. I said, I want to be grateful for the things that are, because at the time I couldn't really grasp the things that were not, like the unknown. I couldn't, I didn't want to go too deep into the unknown because I don't want to give Satan the power of me being anxious or to be in a space where I don't belong. I belong under his tone, which is being in peace and being in gratitude. And so I started a gratitude journal, and every day I would say, thank you, God, for A, B, C, and D, just to keep my spirits lifted. And so it's called Thank You, a 30-year-old stage 4 breast cancer journey to remission.
Right. And available on Amazon?
Yes, it's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble as well. And I have to give this little small story because it just tells you how God has been in the process of all of this. So it initially was a journal. I was not going to turn into a book. I had stayed with my parents during my time of treatment, just like, surgery and things of that nature. And so I was moving out. I dropped the journal. It fell out of my box of things. And my mom was like, she told my sister, she's like, Kelsey, grab that journal. She's like, because Autumn's going to take it. And I don't know what she's going to do with it. So my mom takes the journal. She takes it to her prayer room. She prays over and she's like, Lord, do not let me give this back to Autumn until she's ready. And she went all through my business, read through it and everything. And so it was just basically like, gratitude and things of that nature. Talking about my breast cancer journey. And so after I had beat my prognosis, she had called me. She's like, Autumn, you did it. And I'm like, I did what, Mom? She's like, you beat your prognosis. And I was like, you weren't supposed to tell me. Because I had told the doctor not to tell me. But anyway, I was happy and I rejoiced with her. So I had no idea at the time that my prognosis was 2 years. I just knew that I had a prognosis. And to keep my mind strong, I didn't want to know. But beating it, that gave me so much empowerment and so much faith in God, in Christ. And so
wow.
So my mom had gave me back she gave the journal back to me after that 2-year time frame, and she went through it and she tagged every single page that had come to pass. And there were so many pages that came to pass in that journal that I had written about, like saying I want to be in remission. And I told my mom, like before I published my book, I said, she was like, Mom, she's like, oh, you should finish your book. I was like, Mom, I'm not going to until I'm in remission. I kid you not, Pastor P and Sister Didi. After I went to the doctor that day, my doctor said, you are now in remission. So it's like God has a sense of humor. He's like, you won't write this book.
He does. Let me get to writing. Yeah.
All right.
And we're so glad you did. And thank you for mentioning your mother, because you all share, you shared your story on social media, and for mentioning your aunt as well and her journey as well. And so thank you all for being so transparent and just such a powerful testimony.
Thank
And
you.
P, now you see why she was booked and busy in
Man, oh man,
October.
listen, living testimony for real. Thank
Living
you so
testimony.
much for
Yes.
sharing
Living
your
All the
heart.
glory, all the
testimony.
honor.
Yes. A living sacrifice. We appreciate you so much. And
Thank
so we
you.
want to book you now for October. Okay.
Yes, I'm like, it's already done.
So we got to bring you back so you can expound on your book and your story. And I just believe it's definitely going to be a blessing to others who are on the line with us on tonight and who will catch this playback as well. And so we appreciate you, Autumn. Thank you for all that you do. Stay on the wall, stay strong, keep
Thank
being the
you.
warrior that you are, the
Thank you so much.
survivor that you are, and an encouragement to so many people. And so
Thank you
just
so much.
let your light keep shining. We appreciate you. Thanks for hanging
Thank
out in
you.
the upper room. We
Bless you,
will be sure to have you
Thank
back.
you.
All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you both for your time tonight.
All right. You
Mom.
too. You
Thank
too.
you.
Man. To God be the glory on tonight.
Lead.
Amazing, amazing exclamation point on tonight. And if you heard that story, again, this was our commitment to honor awareness. And we wanted to put a bow on it as we knew Autumn was going to join us on tonight in double duty. And so we want to offer to you as a support information about the cancer support community. Indiana. It's an organization led by President and CEO Dr. Terry Witt Bailey. And we want to encourage you that you can reach out to that organization for resources and support as well. And even Dr. Witt Bailey, she is a friend of the ministry, very active in the social justice and social action space. And also, she was a former leader of the Madam Walker Theater as well. And also, she ran for mayor. She's a former mayoral
Sit in
candidate in
front. Yeah, yeah.
Muncie, Indiana, as well. And so, we're going to be sure to have her back to join that conversation about keeping awareness at the forefront. That it's not just for October, but there is a focus as well in our community that should be a mainstay on our health because we need all of our mind, all of our strength, all of our body
Absolutely.
to do this work. And so, family, thank y'all so much for hanging out with us in the upper room. Pete, I appreciate you, Pastor Pete.
Likewise, my sis.
Thank you so much for helping us round out this edition. And just for a few reminders as we come into the stretch, family, it is November. We are already almost mid November. So we want to remind you that this Sunday is Communion and Baptism Sunday at all campuses. Make sure that you set that alarm for the Wednesday Wake Up 7 a.m. prayer call. And join us as our exhortation ministry continues to lead us. We also want to remind you that we will continue to pray in December as well. So we're going to have a special Holy Day prayer series that's going to take place in December as well. So we will continue in prayer in December. And again, shout out to our exhortation ministry as they are doing an amazing job leading us in November. Our last Wednesday in the Word noonday worship will be on November 15th, next Wednesday at the main campus, 12 noon. So make sure you come out or come on site or join us online. Also, the 7 p.m. Bible study will be in session at all campuses next week. Then we'll be right back here in the upper room live. We want you to join us for our, ironically, our hashtag Thank You Lord edition.
Mhm.
So join us as we prepare for the Holy Day season. We'll have the Care Center represented, also our exhortation ministry. FFI will be with us, our Financial Freedom Institute, and also the relaunch of our prison ministry. So, Pathfinders to Hope, I hope I got that right.
You got it
Um,
right.
okay, cool. They will be with us too as we keep the main thing during the holiday season of being grateful
Yes.
for what we already have and being mindful that we share that gratitude by being a blessing to other people. So they're going to share some practical tips and insights of how to navigate the holiday season through grief. Again, being mindful and being a blessing to the least, the lonely, and the left out, and how we do that here individually and collectively at Eastern Star Church, and how you can do that personally also with your family, with your loved ones, and in the community. So you want to make sure you tune in, meet us right here, same bat time, same bat channel, right here in the upper room next Thursday, 7 p.m. on Facebook and YouTube. We also want to remind you about our Marriage Ministries Couples Game Night. That's going to take place at the Cooper Road campus at 6 p.m. on November 17th. And also our Thanksgiving Day worship, our annual Thanksgiving Day service that will take place that morning, 10 a.m. at the main campus. Then we will have our church celebration 2023 as we look at the year in review. You do not want to miss that. That will be immediately following each service, all campuses on November 26th. So make sure you save the date. Put that brunch on pause for just a minute. Make sure you come to church celebration and any of the activities you normally do after service on that day, just for that day. And make sure you join us for the church celebration as pastor and our senior leadership will share some insights and highlights from 2023. And then our fall family fun night. Ooh,
Yeah.
say that
All fun night.
fast. Fall
Yeah.
family fun night will take place 6 p.m. main campus, November 29th. Did I hit everything, Pastor P?
I
Anything
think
you
you
want to
got
add to that?
everything, Minister Didi. That was pretty thorough. I'm impressed. I'm
Man,
tired too. You
I
did
had
it.
to
You
have
went
I
straight
had to
through.
have my script tonight. I couldn't go off the top of my head tonight. I had to have my
Very
script
good.
tonight. So
Very good.
y'all make sure visit easternstarchurch.org for ministry information and updates. Make sure you like, love, and share this live, and get into this sermon series that Pastor is on with the blessings of bouncing back, or the bounce back, the blessing of bouncing back. I think that's what it is. But just kicked it off, been a blessing. If you missed midweek yesterday,
Woo wee.
fire.
Boy,
Go check it out. Facebook
you
and
better go get
YouTube.
it.
Lost and Found. It'll bless you. And then even on Sunday, Pastor Daniel, Pastor D, the
Yes, sir.
alphabet
D.
pastors, Pastor D and Pastor P, our new associate pastor of preaching and teaching. He blessed us at the main campus on this past Sunday. I think that was that his first Sunday? No, I think second Sunday.
Yeah.
That he's been
Awesome.
on the wall with us. Yeah. So he
Yep.
blessed us as well. So make sure you go back and check out those sermons on Facebook and YouTube. Any parting words for the people on tonight, Pastor P,
Now,
before we
y'all just
get out of
stay
here?
encouraged, stay on the wall, continue to lift up and build up our Gen Z and our millennial generation as we continue to also honor and hold up the arms of our leadership generation, y'all, and just stay encouraged. Like Minister Didi always say, stay on the wall, stay on your knees and in your prayer closet, and let's keep on doing this thing for the kingdom.
For sure. Uh, couldn't put it any better than that. We signing off on that one. Love you. Appreciate you, Pastor P.
Likewise.
Again, be encouraged, family. We love you. Till next time, signing off from the upper room where we're connecting Christ with the culture, powered by Eastern Star Church. We love you, family. God bless.